Go ahead and plan on that. Good
See you
afternoon.
recording.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is Thursday, January 13th, 2022, just past 2:30 p.m. And this is the monthly meeting of the Lincoln County Fair Board. This is Vice Chair Claire Hall presiding. Fair Board Chair Frank Geltner is also with us by telephone, and Fair Board member Jim Beisman is excused. Second item of business is the approval of the December 7th, 2021 Fair Board meeting minutes. And let the record show that Mr. Geltner did submit some changes to the minutes. So unless there is objection, they will stand approved with the changes noted. Now, agenda item number 3 is other business. And first up would be OSU Extension 4-H Update Fair event. Who's going to lead that off? Todd?
Hi, Will. Thank you. And good afternoon, everyone. I'm still having trouble saying afternoon in our meetings after having done it in the morning for so many years. Good to see everyone. Not an awful lot to report on either the 4-H or the fair side. Things at 4-H are clicking along like normal after school's running well. We certainly appreciate the facilities, and I think the pick of the litter building, floral building, is working out well. There have been a couple of maintenance issues, especially the big wind took off some roof panels on the pick of the litter fairgrounds office, as well as unhinged the doors on the horse arena, indoor horse arena. But the maintenance guys, I think, are all over that and getting it done. So thank you, Jack and company, for making that so easy. The only really big item I have is that the Oregon Fairs Association conference is coming up February 6th through 9th. It's in person again in Salem after a year of doing it virtually last year. They've decided to do it in person. I think it's important that we attend. And I'd like to take, of course, Heather and Colleen and Mike Smith, our rodeo superintendent. I also invited Steve Mason, who we generally take, who does our all of our entertainment and sound. He is unable to attend because it's during the week, not on a weekend. So it would be just the 4 of us. Registration's roughly $139 per person. I think we can get it done with 2 hotel rooms. And we won't be going for the entire 5 days. The first day is a board meeting. I think we'll probably be there 2 or 3 days, so probably only a need for 1 night or potentially 2 nights of lodging. So shouldn't be a huge expense. I also committed us. Every year they ask for sponsorship of the program, and I committed to a $350 bronze sponsorship that will come in the form of an invoice from the Oregon Fairs Association. So just wanted to let you know what was happening and get your blessing to take our core group of 4 to the Fairs Association conference in February.
All right. Any questions for Frank? I'm sorry, for Todd.
Not really. I think we should ask if we need to approve any expenditure here.
Mr. Belmont, I'd appreciate you weighing in, but I recall in the past we have taken a vote.
You have, and there is money available in the budget to do this. If that so it's really just your authorization to proceed as Todd outlined.
Mr. Geltner, would you be willing to make a motion to that effect?
I so move.
And I'll second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, it is so ordered. Anything else, Todd?
Just one. We've talked for several years now about getting a fair credit card to put some fair expenses on. This would be an example of one that we would use that fair credit card on instead of having to constantly bother Christy or someone else. We also constantly have expenses, little maintenance expenses during fair that if we had a credit card would really be beneficial. So I'll just put that bug in the ear again of trying to figure out a way that we could more streamline purchases and acquisitions from the fair side. Of course, I wouldn't expect to do that without approval, except in the small purchase categories of fair maintenance when we need paint or screws or whatever during fair time. So I don't even know where to start the ball rolling or re-rolling in this matter. But if somebody would and maybe it's maybe Wayne to get it started would certainly make things easier on our side.
Mr. Belmont, do you think we could, would we need a motion? But it certainly seems like a reasonable request to me.
I think it does too. And I think, and it's actually broader than that, Todd, too, because we have been talking a little bit also with Heather about accepting some payments, for instance, from vendors that come in that we don't have a system right now. You got to write a check and do all that. So other mechanisms that really kind of move us into, maybe it's the 20th century rather than the 21st century. In terms of the way finances are handled in here, I hear what both Todd and Heather have been saying about that, and I'd be fine. I kind of know who to go to start the conversation and get it going, figuring those things out. So with your permission, just from the Fair Board to proceed to work through some of this stuff, we'll work on seeing what we can do on the financial end of things to address some of these issues.
Mr. Geltner, thoughts or questions?
My only question would be what limit we would place on the credit card. In other words, what is the most they would expect to spend independent of a vote of the board?
And I can tell you this, Frank, that we do have some procedures in the county internally that we do that set limits on different persons in terms of what they can do. And I'd suggest before we actually establish those, let's kind of do some work on because I don't remember exactly off the top of my head what those limits are. And I think they do kind of depend on the department and what you've got for appropriation authority. But we would come back to you, I guess, with a recommendation on where that limit might be set. And that'll be some discussion with Todd too, as to what he anticipates he might be expending on a period of time.
Sounds good.
So at this point, maybe a motion to direct staff, county staff to work with fair staff on a capability for both making and receiving credit card payments, with details to be brought back to the Fair Board for final approval at a future meeting.
That works.
That works.
Okay, well, I'll make that motion then. Frank, are you willing to second?
I will second it.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's approved. Anything else, Todd?
No, thank you all.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we'll move on to county staff updates. And let's see, Jack, we heard a little bit about some storm related issues, and Roy, either or both of you, if you want to chime in on anything facility related.
My carpenter is due back off of COVID leave, so tomorrow. So we should start heading up to the repairs. The door that blew in on the big indoor riding arena, pretty precarious, a little dangerous. We're probably going to get some equipment out there to bring it down and then redo the header and the rolling bars for it. So there's a little bit of work to that one. It's secured now. We lag bolted it to the wall. It looks terrible, but it shouldn't fall on anyone.
Well, that's a positive thing.
Yeah, and as far as the pick of the litter roof, that's getting the metal in so that we can get it restrung.
All righty. Anything else from either of you gents?
I don't have any updates. Not a lot going on right now.
All right, then I believe this is when we turn to Mr. Belmont for, I guess, presentation and discussion of the version 2 of a proposed update to the memorandum of agreement between Lincoln County and the Fair Board. And this was emailed out. I'll get what, Wayne, you sent it out a few days ago. Anyway, hopefully everyone's had a chance to review it, and take it away, please.
Thanks, Vice Chair Hall. So this is version 2 of this agreement. We got the original agreement out to you last month and solicited comments on that from both the Fair Board and the Board of Commissioners. And this version incorporates the comments and suggestions that were made by both Fair Board members and the Board of Commissioners as to kinds of changes. I think everybody's in general agreement about the purposes of this. This is really addressing the relationship between the county and the Fair Board concerning the annual county fair, the management of the commons property, both when it is devoted to the fair and when it's not devoted to the fair, protocols and communications between the parties, and then liability protection for the county and Fair Board. Those are the 4 main purposes. I'm just going to go briefly through the suggested changes, just to let people know where we address these. The first one that came up was a suggestion. With the new Fair Board, the board will be selecting a new Fair Board. It'll be up to a 5-person Fair Board. So that's back to kind of the old days in some ways, more than we've had for the last few years, which is a 3 Fair Board member. And I just want to stress again that the overarching requirement, other than the statutory requirements that are for membership, are that we want to make sure that prospective board members are committed to the successful execution of the annual fair. That's first. We've talked long and hard about the next Fair Board being a working Fair Board. And I know there's some expectations by Todd and the crew at Extension that they're going to get on people who are going to, be boots on the ground, basically, when it comes to the fair and doing things. And that's going to be an overarching I think, requirement that we put for members of the Fair Board, but also they have to be committed to the long-term plans for the fair and for the commons, for the use of the community facilities outside the fair event. So that's sort of the overarching. We want to make sure that the general areas and the interests that we've identified in the agreement were amongst those we've discussed over the years and generally have been represented at fair events. And the board is not required to pick from any of those categories specifically or exclusively. The makeup of the board is dependent on the Board of Commissioners ultimately to decide to make those appointments. But it does at least identify some of the interests we're trying to make sure are represented in the fair event. And so I want you to take a look at that. It's on page 2. Christy, if you can scroll down to page 2, it's highlighted in yellow, sort of some of the revisions in there, and I'll talk about that just briefly. So one of the things that, kind of the groups in here that are part of this is I had it a little bit more circumscribed, like we specifically had 4-H in the youth category in there. And in the discussions, and I know at least one commissioner said, absolutely want 4-H involved with this. But there also are other youth groups and education kinds of groups that are out there. So let's broaden this wider here so we can get kind of a broad array of folks who would be interested in this. So that the reference to 4-H specifically was taken out of there. Also, we distinguish between the land-based agriculture and the one that's at the bottom, which is ocean science, commercial fishing, recreational fishing, and other sectors. I know that many of you will recall not too many years ago, we actually had a pretty good, there was a fair that had a pretty good participation by the ocean community. And a lot of nice, interesting events that went along with the fair at that time. So if we can encourage somebody and somebody can take an interest in wanting to participate and meet these other general commitments out there, that's another category of the board. And then the other ones are pretty similar to what we've had before. I'm not sure that tourism promotion or visitor services was specifically mentioned, but that's another thing that's kind of connected to the whole idea of the fair and the use of the commons. So those are the ones that was the first thing that came about. The other ones are actually pretty simple kinds of changes, just some language changes. And Christy, why don't you keep scrolling through that? That was really the only thing that was of major note was the change I described. I do want to talk about a little bit about the relationship between the county itself and the Fair Board. I've tried to recognize in this the fact that there will be a county administrator in the county. Actually, Claire, you can help me with this. I think starting in February, is my understanding, is the county administrator will be on board.
I am not 100% sure on that, but I know last I heard contract negotiations were underway, though the candidate had not signed on the bottom line yet, but was doing house shopping in the area. And
Yeah.
so I think February is a reasonable.
I think February was the date I saw. So what this does is it recognizes the fact that there will be this position of the county administrator who will kind of be the liaison with for the board with the Fair Board and with the management of the commons out there. Now, whether or not that's something that is an employee in the county administrator under this county administrator's control, whether that's a contract that to do the administration of the commons, however the county board's going to set up that particular relationship, this provides all those options. And that's a decision that can later be made by the board and the county administrator as to who they're going to designate as their person from their end of it to be basically be a liaison between the Fair Board and any people working with the Fair Board and the Board of Commissioners in the county. So I just wanted to say that this does recognize that position, but it also incorporates all the flexibility necessary to move forward with managing the commons in the future. So that's what that particular language reflects. And then there are some, I just wanted to note, there are some requirements in here for not only doing the planning that needs to be done for both the fair and the commons and coordinating all those planning efforts in there so we can do some long-term things. But there are some requirements that there be, this liaison relationship between the Fair Board and the Board of Commissioners and some annual reviews so that this is something that comes up on an annual basis. You see, is this working properly here? What does the Fair Board need? What does the county need? What does the county commons need? Those kinds of things. But it puts it on an annual review and sets the possibility for other joint meetings as necessary to kind of move forward with the redevelopment plans of the commons and any plans that are later developed by the Fair Board. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I don't really have any questions at this point. How about you, Mr. Geltner?
Did we lose
Frank,
him?
did we lose you?
No, I had muted it because of the background noise it was feeding.
Oh, okay.
So, go ahead. Frank, would you repeat that?
Yes, I said I'm totally satisfied with what Wayne has presented to us.
Okay, I really am too. I'm not seeing anything that gives me any kind of significant heartburn.
I can tell you this, I could just for noting, I have spoken to Mr. Biesman about this agreement. He is obviously aware, and in general, he didn't have any specific recommendations at the time I spoke to him, but the general gist of the direction it's going and what it's doing, he's supportive of, very supportive.
Okay, so what are you looking for?
I see Mr.
us?
Kenyon has his hand raised. I think that's
I'm-
he's doing a real hand raise rather than a virtual hand raise.
Oh, okay. Well, Roy, then the floor is yours. Yeah, and I saw that yellow hand.
How's that?
Now there.
I'm
helps get my
slow on the
attention.
uptake.
Okay.
Anyway, I just wanted to make a short comment. I do see that the title of Commons Manager is added in there. I know that currently things are kind of duct taped together as far as that duty. I just think that it's important that the Fair Board and the county continues to pursue somebody for that position. I'm kind of speaking up for Eli now, because right now Eli is a department of one. And so it would be really nice to see somebody slip into that position and do that work that is really necessary for the commons to run smoothly.
And Roy, I can address that a little bit because I've had some conversations with Eli, and we're trying to assist him as this on this interim basis too. And the way this is actually identified in the MOA is this is all going to fall under, all this is now going to fall under the county administrator in terms of actually allocating out and providing the resources for the county end of this. So this is going to be the county administrator's responsibility to kind of on a go forward basis, and how that's accomplished again through staff, through contracts, through whatever is going to be determined with the board and the county administrator.
Gotcha. I took my hand down. So
I notice that now. Yeah, I got to pay closer attention to this screen. Anyone else with questions, comments, feedback on this draft? So Wayne, is this at the document at the point where you would like us to, I don't know, vote our approval and recommend approval to the Board of Commissioners? Or
I think what I'd like to do is suggest that you make a motion to recommend approval of the document subject to review by the board, so that I can formally take it now to the Board of Commissioners as I've done with you. See if there's any other changes that they're suggesting, and then come back to you for, it could be, it might not, when's our February meeting? Christy?
On February 10th.
February 10th. I'm hoping I can actually get it back in front of you by February 10th for formal adoption, because I think I can get it in front of the Board of Commissioners and make sure everybody's okay, and then we can get it formally adopted by the Fair Board on February 10th, and then immediately thereafter by the Board of Commissioners.
Okay, so I would move, as Mr. Belmont suggested, that we approve this document subject to review by the Board of Commissioners. Is that how you phrased it?
That's fine. That would be fine.
Okay. Mr. Geltner, I will ask you.
Motion?
Yep. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, 2 ayes. The ayes have it. And so that's concluded for today. Any other business to come before the Fair Board?
Maybe just a kind of a continuation of our discussions here. Once this agreement is in place, assuming this happens in February, we're going to begin and running a little bit parallel with this. We're going to begin our process of soliciting new Fair Board members. So just passing it on to everybody who's on this particular meeting, or who may be watching this meeting out there, to think about, if you're interested in the Fair Board, it'll be pretty short in which we're going to be doing that recruitment process to get new Fair Board members. So, and this will be again, provide the backbone and the leg, or the groundwork for what the new Fair Board members can expect to do as they come on board. So that process will be going on.
Wonderful.
Wayne,
One more
is,
call for anything else.
Sorry, just a
Sure,
quick
Todd.
question, Wayne. Is there a plan to phase in new members and preserve some of the institutional integrity and knowledge that the Fair Board has created over the past decade? I'm a little worried. I mean, this group has been a wonderful group to work with, and I want to preserve that, as opposed to bringing in brand new members and having a whole new Fair Board in the space of a month or two. What are your thoughts there?
Well, that's a good question. And I think what I need to do is a little bit offline is to have a conversation with each of the 3 Fair Board members to see what their willingness is, in terms of doing that transition. That's really what it's going to come down to. But it might be a possibility. We could expand the Fair Board to 5 immediately and just add 2 more members right now, and then for a period of time do some transitioning, and then phase people off in an agreed upon time frame. But I'll have that discussion individually with each of the Fair Board members and come back in February and see where we're at.
Yeah, hopefully something like that can be developed. I hate to see the relationships and good things that we've developed over the last decade or more could be just wiped out with a Fair Board that comes in that's got a completely new personality. So I like that phase in concept if we can find a way to do that, recognizing the time and effort that everyone has put in over the years. I know that this interim fair board would sure like to move on, and I appreciate that.
Sure.
Okay, sounds reasonable to me as well. Last call. Last call. Last call. Okay, it is 3 p.m. and we will declare the January meeting of the Lincoln County Fair Board adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Happy New Year.